If you want bright guitars that cut through the mix without hurting your listeners' ears, then follow along today and I'm going to show you my exact process. I'm going to start, as always, by showing you the finished mix for this song, and then I'll solo up our electric guitars and break down the process that we're using here. Here's our finished mix for this song.
I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain? I wanna know, have you ever seen the rain coming down on a sunny day?
You can hear our electric guitars are nice and clean, nice and bright inside the track here, but they're not harsh, they're not thin sounding, and they're not pokey sounding inside the track here. I'm going to give you a quick A-B of the processing here so you can hear where we started. So here's the electric guitars, no plugins, no processing, and then I'll click it back on. You can hear where we end up. You can hear our starting point here is pretty dull, it's pretty thick sounding, and very, very dark sounding. So let's jump in here. The first plugin I have in the chain is this EQ, and it looks pretty drastic here, but let me turn off these points here and we'll go through them one by one. The first thing I'm always doing on electric guitar is pulling in a high pass filter and a low pass filter. Electric guitars don't benefit from too much top end or too much bottom end. The more you have in the frequency spectrum, the more space they're going to take up and the harder they're going to be to sit properly inside the track. So I like to roll off everything below about 180 here on these electric guitars, unless they're like low-tuned metal guitars. We don't need a lot below like 100, 150 hertz here. I've got this rolled up to 182 hertz here, 12 dB per octave slope. That's going to clean up our bottom end here. And then same thing on the top, I'm rolling our low pass filter to about 8K. Anywhere above about 5, 6, 7K, that's kind of the harshness, and that's those pokey frequencies. If we start boosting up there, and if we start adding compression with that range opened up, we're going to get some harshness, and we're going to get some weird artifacts that we don't need on our electric guitar. So rolling that off just to be safe here, let me do an A-B on just this EQ, just a high pass filter and a low pass filter. Take a listen to how this hones in on the heart of this electric guitar sound, without and then with. Just those two moves, and we've drastically cleaned up this pair of electric guitars, our left and our right here, by getting rid of all that muddiness and that buildup in the bottom end that we don't need. The other move I'm going to make here before we move on is I'm going to pull out just a touch of this 300 hertz area. Anywhere from like 200 to 500 is going to be that muddiness in the low mids, that build up between guitars. As you start stacking guitars, stacking instruments, you're going to get a natural build up here in the low mids. I'm going to trim some of that out here. We're at 311 hertz. I'm going to pull out about 3 dB here. You don't always have to do this, but these are muddy enough that I want to pull out a little bit here. You got to be careful that you don't go too far as well, because we don't want to thin out these guitars too much and make them feel weak or thin. So take a listen without, and then I'm going to kick this cut in here at 311 hertz. It's not a lot there, and the guitars still feel a little dark they feel like they have a little bit of buildup here in the low mids, but that's because we're lacking a lot of top end at this point. I've just pulled out enough here to kind of get rid of some of that buildup there. So as we boost up top end, we can balance between the low mids and the top end to get a nice even frequency range here on our guitars. I don't want to go too much here because I don't want to thin these out and make them feel weak or small. Now, before we get to this top end boost, I like to get a bit of compression in place before I start doing any top end boosts. For me, it's easier to boost top end into compression because I have this kind of ceiling. I'm bumping my microphone. I have this ceiling of control that I can boost into. No matter how much top end I boost, I'm always going to have the compressor in place there, kind of holding things down and holding things in place. It's a little bit of a balancing act, and the compressor helps me do that. So as I boost top end, it kind of keeps the frequency range and the volume of the guitar in place here. I like using this Everest C100A style compressor. If I had like a LA3A, I'd probably reach for something like that as well. Medium style attack, fast release here. We're only going to be doing about 3, maybe 4 dB reduction. So take a listen without and then with. Just about 3 dB reduction there, and you can hear it's kind of just holding the guitar in place. For me, this compressor is like concrete. It just solidifies the sound we already have, and that's what I love so much about this compressor. Any kind of medium attack, fast release compressor is going to do this kind of thing, where it's just going to hold your guitars in place. We don't need a lot of compression, because if we zoom out here, our guitars are pretty even. They're not very dynamic in this track. We just need something to hold them in place and kind of give us that concrete element of like, here's our sound, nothing's changing here. Now that we've got that in place, a little bit of control there, we're going to do a giant boost on the top end. These are very, very dark sounding electric guitars, and they need some brightness to cut through in the track here. So we're doing a 13.5 dB boost at about 5K. This is where having the low pass filter really, really comes in handy. If we didn't have this low pass filter here, let me turn this off and I'll turn on this boost. You can see this boost is reaching all the way up to about 15K here. We don't need to be adding anything at 15K on these guitars. There's not a lot up there frequency rise, and the more we pull up there, it's just going to be noise and artifacts that we don't need. So we kick in this low pass filter. You can see it cuts it down to about 8, maybe 9K that our boost ends there. So take a listen here without the boost, and then I'm going to kick this in. This is going to add a ton of brightness and cut to our electric guitars. So that boost really opens up the top end on our electrics here. It gives us a ton of brightness and a ton of energy that's going to cut through inside the mix here. Takes them from sounding dull and really, really dark to sounding a little bit more exciting. It's something you're going to hear on the edges of our mix here. But excuse me, you'll notice with this big boost, we have some notes that are a little bit pokey and a little bit edgy. We don't want to hurt our listeners' ears with a big boost like this, especially spread wide here. They're going to be sitting with the acoustics, the keys. I don't want to go too far with this boost to try and get everything sitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control the top end now. If you want bright guitars that are cutting through the mix, but you don't want them to hurt your listeners' ears, the key is to use some multiband compression here. And I have a setting that I use on the PreSonus multiband dynamics here. It's just a preset I created called Guitar Tamer, and we're just looking at everything above 1K. So if I were to mute this range, here's everything below 1K. This is never a problem for me on guitars. It's just above 1K. So here's everything below 1K. So nothing down there is going to hurt our ears. Nothing down there is popping out. Nothing down there needs control. It's everything up here. So if I solo this frequency range, this is 1K and above. Take a listen. That's all the pokey stuff. That's all the edgy stuff that we want to control here. So we're looking at 1K and above here, just this frequency range. I've got the ratio set to 20:1, so it's working like a limiter on this band. Fastest attack and then fastest release. We want to grab anything that's pokey, anything that's harsh, anything that's jumping out in this range. We want to grab it, pull it down, and then let go and leave the rest of this frequency range unharmed. That's how we're going to balance the top end. We have these notes that are jumping out, that are poking out. We want to control those, and we want to leave the rest of the sound alone. That's how we get our brightness, and that's how we get our guitars to cut without hurting our ears and without being pokey. So take a listen here without, and then I'm going to kick it in. You can see the amount of gain reduction we're doing overall up here in the top right corner. Now we have a nice level of control on the top end of our electrics here, and we have a little bit of a dial that we can work with here, right? We can turn this down if we need to clamp down more on the top end, and we can always move the gain up if we need more of this frequency range. Setting the threshold here just visually, I'll hit play again, but I like to pull this threshold down on the top end just till it's sitting about average with the volume of everything below 1K. That way it kind of sets our top end even with the rest of the frequency range, and anything that jumps up or pokes out is going to get pulled down. It's going to hit this ceiling on our threshold. So take a listen without one more time, and then with, and you can kind of see the threshold is set even with the average volume of everything below 1K. So if you want your guitars to be bright and cut through the mix without harming your listeners' ears, without them being harsh, here's what we're doing here. Using our EQ first to hone in on our fundamental frequency range, using our high pass and our low pass, trimming any muddiness here. Then we're getting our compressor in place. This is our nice little ceiling to balance our boosts here before we crank up that top end to get our guitars bright and cutting through the mix here. And the secret to making sure they don't get harsh or hurt your listeners' ears with that big top end boost is pulling in a multiband compressor to control and clamp down on that top end. We're looking at everything above 1K, big ratio, fast attack, fast release, and we're controlling anything that's pokey or edgy in the top end of our electrics. I hope that was helpful for you. If you are looking to go a little bit deeper into the mixing process in its entirety, and you really want to start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF guide that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the guesswork. Like I said, completely free to download, and you can get access to that by clicking the link below in the video description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.